and we've seen a lot of challenges. The problem of implementation.
The issue of poor networking in Nigeria.
Researches and documentations.
Project-based employment.
Lack of access to legal representation.
It's kind of difficult implementing your own policies.
It's project-based employment.
Wage disparity within the sector.
Project-based employment in relation to issues around casualization, short-term contracts, and the need for job security.
Lack of funding.
Implementation, when it comes to implementation.
High rate of staff turnover. Thank you.
Proper documentation and funding.
Also a problem of long-term career advancement for most people.
Exploitative nature of wages in the sector.
Poor benefit package for staff.
Discrimination in the workplace.
A labor protection challenge issue you faced or you witnessed.
Retention and recruitment.
Mental health in workplace.
Distinguished guests, panelists, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, welcome you all to this labor protection in civil society workspaces, especially looking at the West African region where we all work. It's an honor to have everyone here, united by our shared commitment to improving labor conditions within this space. Today's convening is not just a forum for discussion, but a call to action. We are here to address significant challenges facing the very workers who drive social change, empower communities, and promote justice across our region. These workers, often overlooked, are the backbone of civil society, yet they face the precarious working conditions, limited job security, inadequate social protections, and sometimes too unsafe work environments. Our discussion today will explore key themes critical to advancing labor protection, and they include employment dynamics, social protection mechanisms, workplace safety, and worker representation. These issues are not abstract in nature, but are real challenges affecting the lives of countless individuals who dedicate themselves to promoting human rights, development, and social justice in West Africa. The research findings we will present today highlight not only the gaps, but also the opportunities for reform. We must work together to ensure that civil society workers are treated with dignity and respect. And as we seek to address these challenges, let us remain focused on practical, actionable solutions that can create lasting change. Your participation here today reflects a shared commitment to building stronger, fairer, and more sustainable workplaces within civil society, and I encourage you all to engage actively in today's discussion, share your insights, and collaborate in forging a path forward. One that ensures that the protection and well-being of all civil society workers is paramount. On behalf of South Saharan Social Development Organization, I thank you all for your dedication and for taking the time to be part of this important convening. Together, we have the power to shape the future of labor protection in this space and make meaningful impacts on the lives of those who serve our communities. Thank you all, and I look forward to a rich discussion and solutions as we explore all this today. Thank you very much.
The two-tier system, as mentioned here, is as perennial as some of the cardinal issues, that we have in HR administration, so to speak. These employment opportunities are project-based funded.
With this case study, I think the organization is even doing a little well because they still have staff that they actually give the benefit package. In some situations, even full staff don't have access to benefit package just because of the root cause. The root cause is actually financial constraint. So you are able to make decisions based on the funds that are available. So you see situations where organizations actually really want to pay the staff. You really want to pay. You really want the staff to have the benefits, but you don't have the resources to be able to do that. So you have a situation where a project says you can only have two program staff, and then you have other staff in the organization also contributing even to the work. So how do you leverage? Be able to save funds and be able to take care of others. And so in that constraint, they may not even be so well paid as they would want to be paid in terms of even the full package and also the benefits that comes with it. But this is the situation. How do we start looking at other sources of funding rather than depending on donor funds, how do we ensure that you as an organization can actually exist with or without external funding? I think that's something.
What strategies can be employed to offer career growth opportunities despite funding constraints?
I think when people started joining the NGO sector, I think what they had in mind, the very nature of the work most of the time is donor-based, is donor-funded, and that is a fact that I think everybody who comes into the sector needs to understand. Sometimes you find a situation where the donor says they are not willing to pay more than so much for this position. And then you look into your pay scale, for example, and you say, oh, by the time you're providing all of this social safety net provisions, then you will probably not even find anybody that you can recruit to do that kind of work at that price. So you're struggling with some of the things she's saying, looking for the right staff and all of that. So the problems are not on the employees' side. Always about, the people, let's do some more aluta and trying to get them to do this for us. Is that the donors, in fact, for example, you talked about some pensions and full benefits. Some donors say we don't pay severance. How can we manage it? Okay, we can't afford to take on full-time staff, but the quality of work that is requires a certain employee at this level. Okay, can we take them as consultants? Can we reduce the number of days? Can we do this and that? So that's what leads sometimes to some of the differences in the type of contracts that are issued.
What I have seen in Nigeria is that everybody wants to do something. Everybody wants to seem as though that they are doing something, when I think that there is power in coalition. So we have pockets of CBOs, CSOs. I am doing governance. In Enugu State, for instance, or let me not say Enugu State, in maybe Nasarawa State, you see several hundreds of CSOs and CBOs doing exactly the same thing. How about we come together and join forces? And there is power in how do they say this thing? Coming together, or connection. So when you have a coalition, you don't have so much of a problem of saying, how do I fund this thing? But it's just that in Nigeria, I want to say, I own this NGO, I own this CBO, and then this is what it is.
From donor fund, as long as you are tied to donor, there's a limit to what you can do with your corporate governance and labor issues and human resources issues, and that is the reality. So being creative and innovative to see how we have additional resources that we can then use to do all these things is something that I think, and that is something
like when we are talking about remuneration, I think one of the first thing we need to look out for, even beyond the project, we need to look at sustainability. And everything that a good ED or a good management should watch out for is spotting the right talent and retention. It's called, they create in their policy what is called minimum pay for each cadre of staff. Project expenses, admin and all that, where you get funds from to run your expenses. And sometimes these funds are not really exhaustive. Don't really exhaust them at the end of the day. Some do not allow you to keep them. Some will say, no, do account and do proper returns, right? But let's be on the good side. Where you're allowed to keep these funds, what do you use them to do? It's called admin. HR, paying of staff goes into admin. You can use that to supplement for other staff that are not working on a particular project, where you can have a minimum standard where you pay. Let's say, for instance, minimum standard you pay an associate program officer, which is kind of like one of the lowest rank. You can say, the minimum we can pay as an organization, looking at our level, is 100,000, and it is clear from the beginning. When the project stops and we are unable to secure another fund to run the particular test, this is the amount you get, and other benefits that comes with it, such as some organizations don't go as far as, in order to minimize the expenses of the employee, they give them what is called tax concession, where they pay maybe half of their tax from their expenses to say.
I also wanted to add that we also have to think about a personal improvement plan. So in my organization, we don't just say, we are planning for you. Are you planning for yourself? What is it that you want when you start? It's very important, because you can push the organization to give you an enabling environment, but can you take it and run with it?
We have to reevaluate the structure of the CSO sector, be it a founder, be it the head of HR, be it just even a HR staff, whatever capacity you're in, because we solely rely on donor funds, what happens is we become subsidiaries for donor funds. It's almost like you're an outlet for Ford Foundation, you're an outlet for BMGF. That's not why you started. That's not why you're working there. And sustainability, we talk about it, but I don't think people put it into action. Once you're part of the management staff, I've had meetings, and I think for the last 5 years, I have had to insert myself when they're writing proposals. What are you writing about with staffing plan? You've not even spoken to me.
If we have project-based employment, we already know it has a lifespan, and we can't talk about, or we can't insist on retaining employees when we think about the things that they take away. It's not just about the job, it's not just about the money. We have the expertise, we have the skills. Can consider making these jobs like part-time, right? This way it's going to afford those volunteers, those employees to have their own businesses or to pursue other employment opportunities that are available. And the other things we can do for those kind of employees is maybe recognize them, right? Like write recommendations for them, because personally I have benefited from very powerful appraisals and powerful recommendations. It's been much more valuable than any money that anybody could have ever given me.
Do we have coalitions or something that protects workers?
So not every organization have an internal dispute resolution mechanism. Now, with employer-employee issues, under the Third Amendment of the Nigerian Constitution, these are cases that go to the National Industrial Issues. When you now come to an organization that has an internal dispute resolution mechanism, and for which the issue is not termination, you've not been fired, you've not been let out of the door, it's imperative that you exhaust that internal dispute resolution mechanism before seeking any external interference. So why I would say, well, for whatever reason, donor A, the reason donor A went to court is because he had been fired. So at that point, he's operating from outside. NGO B exploited the internal dispute resolution mechanism because the staff were still members of the company. So first thing we do is, whatever the mechanism is, maybe somebody comes and lodges a complaint. Usually those complaints are anonymous. They set up either a committee to investigate, make a representation, both sides make representation. If there is need to disclose the parties involved, they do that. And in most cases, you put parameters in place to protect the complainant, the primary complainant, and where the assailant or the person who committed the offense is being punished, they ensure that there is no that the complainant does not now have bad blood that spilled over against that complainant. So these are some of the very important things that when drafting an internal dispute resolution mechanism, companies ought to take cognizance of. Now, in some cases, it will not, the complainant will not be satisfied with the response or the resolution reached by the company. That is when you now escalate. The National Industrial Court also has jurisdiction to hear sexual harassment cases, if that is what the complaint is, unfair labor practices, if that's what the complaint is. But it's imperative that when coming to the court, you have shown that you have exhausted that internal dispute resolution mechanism which you signed up for. You are now coming to the court by way of an appeal, kind of. We now want to activate the jurisdiction of this court. I have exhausted the remedy. I'm not satisfied with the response. Now I want the court to intervene and, give me justice, what I consider justice.
All of these things still boils down to policies of organization. Sometimes when organizations are drafting policies, it is more of protecting the organization and not necessarily the employees, right? And when you see this, it takes an organization that is honest with itself to say we want to protect both the organization and both the employees.
And the point is this, you need to separate management from the board. What you see here is that, and you really touch on the point, if you have an internal whistleblowing policy, who does it go to? It goes to the head of the organization or the HR. It is fundamentally flawed. There's a problem with it because either of them could really be the culprit. So the board needs to play oversight. And so when people start their own organizations and NGOs, somebody had mentioned in the crowd, there's a challenge with, us being willing to separate ourselves from the institution. But what we need to do is to have a proper board that plays that oversight.
The other side of it in our sector is that sometimes many of those policies are donor-driven. It's a condition for getting grants. So you don't really mean it, you don't plan to implement. But without it, you won't get the money. So let's get the consultant, let's get the thing. So you have 10 policies. Some of the people managing it do not know the content.
Which is that the CSOs, to achieve a balance, right? The CSOs should consider engaging more legal guidance, seeking guidance from lawyers to review their policies.
Relating it down to us as civil society organization, I don't know how many of us now that we can say we even know the content of what our policy says. The content we don't even know. We don't even use these policies in our day-to-day operation.
Policies are not cast in stone. So the idea to have a policy, some kind of guidance document, that yes, the organization would say we have to protect our end because they are the ones coming up with this idea. They are the ones with the vision. There's a board, there's been conversations, and we're like, this is the best, this is the company culture we want or we would like to have.
That staff should not be micromanaged because people will readily leave an organization where they feel that they are not valued. Then we also suggested better recruitment process, which should not just be based on friendship or family, but on capacity. Then we also said adopting work-life balance and implementing fringe benefits. Staff should not just spend all their life, all the hours of the days in the organization. They should be also able to take care of their families, attend to family issues.
What practical steps can NGOs take, especially for smaller NGOs, to support employee-driven severance policies? And our idea is based off of the discussions from the first panel to make sure that you have you're not a subsidiary of a particular funder. You have your policies, you have your culture, which is linking back to the second panel discussion. Make sure you have your own personal organizational policies and then you implement those things.
What specific safety challenges do female workers in CSOs face, and how can organizations address these issues through tailored safety protocols?
The culture of the organization. So what the organizations need to inculcate is to practice like a zero tolerance for any form of discrimination, whatever form of discrimination, and in particular gender-based discrimination, right? And this thing should be part of the policies, the handbooks, and once in a while it's very good to just send maybe emails or to bring it up during organizations meetings that okay, just remember that this is our policy, this is something that we have absolutely like zero tolerance for. So this is very important.
I don't believe in work-life balance. It's a myth. It doesn't exist. Your work is your life. That is the balance. What you do, where you work, why you do the job, the time frame you collect, everything is the work-life balance. So if you say, oh, this is just work, this is just life, then you're almost lying to yourself, because while you're in that life, maybe at home making meals, you're still thinking about that project. There's really no distinction that this is where it stops. Yes, good and fine, you close your laptop at 5 o'clock, but then again, at the back of your mind, because you're thinking progressively, you'll be thinking about the things that you can do consistently that aligns with your organization.
The CSO needs to develop an all-inclusive policy that is participatory. So it's not just drafting a policy or developing a policy, it has to be participatory. So every member of the firm, and I remember when I was in SSDO, there was a time we had to do one policy review, and we went, that day was really stressful because we went through we didn't even finish that day. I think we did it for 2 days, and we went through all the policies in the firm, and we could see things that we needed to tweak here and there, and that way it was participatory. That way you would see that everybody could contribute. So that was something we highlighted.